Hello, welcome back. Thank you for coming back. Today we've got America Compared, why other countries treat their people so much better and give them health care. No, that's not in the title, but I feel like that might have some part to do with it. Let's get started.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Second Thought.
Thank you,
I'm
Second
going
Thought.
to say something that will probably offend many of my viewers. Let me preface this by saying that I, as an American, include myself in the following statement. Americans are quite possibly the most willfully ignorant people on the face of the planet. We have access to the sum total of all human knowledge, yet our understanding of the world rarely extends beyond our own country. And even then, the majority of Americans believe in a vision of the country that does not actually exist.
Oh.
It's not that we're stupid, we just tend to blindly accept that the US is the greatest place on Earth, and therefore don't
That sounds kind of dumb
see any reason
when you put it like that.
to educate ourselves about the realities of the rest of the world. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how America actually compares to other countries, and consider why the richest country on Earth fails to treat its people with dignity and fairness. I'm going to provide a list of important topics, then for each item we'll compare the American experience with that of citizens from other nations. Hopefully,
right.
by providing a side-by-side comparison, you'll be able to see the stark contrast between how most Americans see their country and how it really stacks up against the competition. To give you an idea
Might be a rude awakening.
of just how skewed the American perception of our country really is, let's start with a pretty shocking example. Compensation for what are considered low-skilled jobs. We'll take the quintessential American company, McDonald's. McDonald's is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue. It operates in over 100 countries and serves over 69 million customers every day. As of 2018, McDonald's was the second largest private employer, with 1.7 million employees.
Behind Walmart?
Behind Walmart's 2.3 million. How many times have you heard someone refer to McDonald's jobs or workers in a derogatory manner? For some reason, people who work at McDonald's are seen as inferior or lazy or have any number of other unfair and unkind assessments leveled at them.
Well, let me just say, I agree. I agree that that's totally unfair. I have a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, it's completely unfair. Honestly, their job is very tedious and more difficult than half the jobs people do, like in an office. I know I'd rather be in an office than freaking worrying about when the fries are up and dealing with customers and stuff. But, oh man. I mean, the reason it is that way is just because it's pretty much the lowest paying job you can get. So it attracts, for whatever reason, I mean, yeah, and they're looked at as like, you know, if you can't get a job somewhere else, then you must not be, I don't know, I don't even like saying it because it's really not true.
This probably stems from the old notion of flipping burgers being a job anyone can perform. But the animosity towards low-wage workers has grown significantly in the past few decades. And in America, McDonald's workers really do suffer a low wage. As of 2020, the average crew member at McDonald's makes $9 per hour. The average McDonald's cashier makes $8 per hour.
I worked at McDonald's.
The federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.25, a rate which has not been raised in over a decade, and which should not be considered a reasonable wage for any position.
That's true. I mean, when the minimum wage is so low that pretty much no job even pays it, like it's hard to even find a job that would dare to pay you minimum wage here in America. I think that means it's too low. Like, it's not even putting any upward pressure on wages at that point.
Considering the fact that a full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States, and can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment in over 95% of US counties. Now, the all-too-common response to data like this is something like, well, yeah, it's not a hard job. You should just find a better one. Here's a simple question. Should any job, regardless of technical skill required, pay workers so little that they cannot afford to rent even the smallest place to live? Not to mention other necessities like utilities, food, and medicine.
That's an interesting question, you know? I mean, I legitimately think it's interesting, and I think the answer is that in decades and centuries prior, the world, we hadn't figured it out. There wasn't enough technology figured out to to provide for everybody in the world and to live a comfortable life. But now, especially in America, if you're just talking about in this country that I live in, of course we could provide those, basic necessities to live to everybody. So yes.
Absolutely not. That is inhumane and cruel, especially coming from the second largest employer in the richest country on the planet. Other notable objections include McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story. But again, McDonald's is not struggling to make ends meet. In 2019,
it should really be on, I think the minimum wage should be raised. It's not surprising to me to see a billion-dollar corporation exploiting its workers, Like, it's almost like that's expected. It's not like they care about their workers. It's sad, but you can't just trust them to give them the workers what they need to live.
McDonald's raked in $21 billion in revenue. But no matter how obvious the exploitation of low-wage workers, Americans are hell-bent on praising the very companies doing the exploiting. Take this article on Reader's Digest, for example. It's titled, "This is what McDonald's workers really get paid." You see that and think, oh, nice. Finally some news showing how poorly these workers are compensated.
Okay,
Then you scroll down and nope, they're actually praising McDonald's, saying things like, the food chain is also great for paying their workers fairly, and
I've never seen anyone with that take.
McDonald's is one of the highest paying fast food chains in the United States. This level of sycophancy is insane. If $8 or $9 an hour is some of the highest pay in the industry, that doesn't indicate that McDonald's is paying fairly. It indicates that a massive chunk of the population is being paid poverty wages. This is where taking an international perspective is so critical. If all you see is feel-good stories about how well McDonald's workers are paid,
To be fair, I find that part a little bit weird. You don't read a whole bunch of stories in the media about how great McDonald's is. That's just not.
You'll never know how
I've never
badly
seen that.
American workers are actually being treated. Let's take the same company, the same position, but in a different country. Here's a McDonald's in Denmark. The average McDonald's worker in Denmark, for doing the same low-skill job, makes $22 per hour. Well, hold on, you hear Reader's Digest scream from across the Atlantic. McDonald's workers in America get paid vacation days after just a year of work. Wow, enticing. In Denmark, when you're hired at McDonald's, not only are you making nearly 3 times what you would make in an American Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and a pension. No slaving away for a year to prove your value to the company. You're hired and you're treated fairly. Simple as that. McDonald's can afford to compensate all their workers like this.
The word fairly is interesting. It's not the best word to me. It's that you're treated well. You know what I mean? Like, life is not fair. The world is not fair. And so that's an easy rebuttal to say, you shouldn't expect to be treated fairly, but you're treated well.
But they won't.
And that I do expect that out of other humans,
Because U.S. laws allow them to exploit American workers to the point where they're basically slaves, earning the bare minimum to survive, paying all of their income and often going into debt just to pay rent, and having no way to escape this vicious cycle because they're working such long hours. This is the case across all of America's low-wage jobs, of which there are many. The plight of the low-wage worker is incredibly dire, and all you have to do to understand that is look at how those same workers are treated in other wealthy countries. Let's move on to another topic. Work-life balance. Fair wages are definitely part of this equation. If you're paid fairly, you don't need to work a second job, which will free up your time to be spent elsewhere. But we're going to focus on other metrics, specifically the length of the work week, vacation time, and parental leave. Let's start with the US. Most Americans would say that 40 hours per week is full-time. That seems to be the general consensus. But
it definitely is the general consensus, yes.
But in keeping with the country's exploitative labor practices, the hilariously named Fair Labor Standards Act does not actually define what qualifies as full-time. That's left up to the employer. Okay, why does this matter? Well, think of your past part-time jobs. Did you get any benefits? Healthcare?
Nope.
401k? Probably not. Most benefits, when they're offered at all, are reserved for full-time employees. Companies don't want to provide benefits because they affect their bottom line. America is
True.
all about cutting costs, and providing workers with fair compensation is a cost.
Yes.
So, imagine you apply
That's why they have to be forced to do it.
for a full-time job at Best Buy. You're offered the job, but they tell you they only have part-time positions, but they can give you almost full-time. They make it sound like they're doing you a favor, offering you more hours than normal part-time. But this is just another example of employers exploiting their workers. If you work 37 hours per week, you're essentially a full-time employee, but they don't have to provide you any sort of benefit.
Yeah, that's very, very real. Man, any kind of minimum wage job you get in here in America, it's against the rules. If you clock in, if you're scheduled to work 39 hours that week and you get caught clocking in early 15 minutes every day and that pushes you above 40 and now the company has to worry about paying you overtime or benefits, that's bad.
No health care, no vacation,
Bad for
nothing.
you.
This is a common practice. Companies will hire people but keep them just below the threshold for full-time to avoid providing fair compensation. I've seen it happen. I used to work at Best Buy and they would do it all the time. And that's just the companies who are still trying to appear generous. Others will simply not offer benefits at all, or set their full-time positions at 50 or 60 hours per week.
Now, to be fair, once again, I've never seen that. I've never seen a 50 or 60 hour week be full-time.
Sales positions are notorious for this. They'll often say, well, we expect you to work 40 hours, but all the top sellers are working 60 to 70 hours per week. This is coercion. They're trying to pressure you into working more hours to benefit them, and the compensation is never what they claim it will be. By allowing
there are so many scams for sales jobs here in America. Oh my God. I know so many people who have fallen for that.
employers to define full-time work, American workers are held captive by corporations, forced to either work absurd hours to qualify for full-time benefits or find a second job to help cover the cost of things like health insurance. Both of these options lead to a terrible work-life balance, and as real wages have decreased and benefits have been offered less and less over the years, huge numbers of American workers have developed an unhealthy work-life balance. For example, in 1960, when workers had real bargaining power, only 20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of children live in households where both parents are working full-time. Where does all this lead? As of 2020, over 85
It's such an interesting way the job market works, you know, like it really is basically, on one hand, it's, you know, equality between men and women. On the other hand, it was just a way for corporations to say, now your family is gonna need two incomes because and that way we can just pay you half as much for you guys to be able to live the lifestyle you want.
5% of American men and 60
I mean, how back in the day, like every great grandfather you hear of here in America had 8 kids and his wife stayed at home. How on earth would you afford that? That is impossible to imagine by today's standards.
66% of women work more than 40 hours per week. We work 137 more hours per year than Japanese workers, 260 more than the British, and 499 more hours per year than the French. Why do other countries have such a better balance? Because many of them have laws that cap the length of the full-time work week. Companies are required to pay their workers fairly and allow enough time off for employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's not the case in the US. Vacation time is a similar story. Whereas many other countries mandate that employers provide paid vacation and sick days, the US does not. In every industrialized nation, workers get more paid vacation days and holidays than in the US. Here's a depressing graph to illustrate just how poorly we treat our workers. France 31, Spain 34, Austria 38, America 0. 0 paid vacation days, 0 paid holidays.
Look at that. Dang, France. And Austria. Woo.
And remember, these are the mandated figures. Every Austrian worker gets a minimum of 38 paid days off per year. Even in the worst possible employment situation,
I can't even imagine.
They'd still get 38 paid days off. In the US, many workers are lucky to get Christmas or Thanksgiving off at all. And the odds that it's a paid holiday? Next to 0. Let's move on to our final comparison.
If you're a minimum wage worker, for sure.
Paid parental leave. Many Americans aren't even aware this is a thing, so let me explain. When an employee of a company has a child, sometimes they're offered parental leave, a period of time where they can stay home from work to bond with and take care of their new baby. This greatly benefits the employee, the child, and in the long run, the company, because the employee will
It's almost like a new baby's more important than your job.
be happier, less stressed, and more loyal to the company. Of course, offering
That's
paid
true, too.
parental leave doesn't benefit corporations in the short term. And if there's one thing that encapsulates the American business philosophy, it's short-term gains over all else. So it won't surprise you to learn that the US is the only industrialized nation on the planet that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. This may be shocking to my American viewers because being able to
I mean, I'm not shocked. As you can see, we're getting ready to have a little baby enter the world next month. So my leave will be, luckily I have a nice job. I like my employer, and I'm going to get 2 weeks.
to get paid to spend time with your newborn child sounds like an impossible dream in our dystopian labor market. And honestly, it probably is impossible in our current America. We're so invested in self-destructive capitalism that even suggesting the possibility of paid parental leave would put US politicians out of a job. That's not the case in the rest of the industrialized world. In fact, every other OECD nation, and even in many third world countries, new parents are guaranteed at least several weeks of leave. Let's take a look at a few of them. Ethiopia, a country with an annual gross national income of under $900 per person, offers 90 days
Oh
of
my
leave
gosh.
with 100% pay. Madagascar,
gosh.
14 weeks at 100%. Afghanistan, 90 days. Denmark,
90
52
days.
weeks. Norway, 56 weeks. France, 16 weeks at 100% pay for your first child, up to 26 weeks for your third, on top of 104 unpaid weeks.
104. It's more weeks than in the year. What?
Lithuania, 52 weeks at 100%, plus an additional 52 weeks at 80%. Again, the United States does not mandate a single day of paid parental leave even for the mother, and the father is never considered. This means that workers in America have to choose to either pay the
Almost never.
exorbitant cost of childcare or have one parent quit their job in order to take care of the child. These are both bad options, which often
Childcare is insane in America. $1,000 a month.
lead to economic precarity. But that doesn't matter to the
daycare.
companies employing American workers. Profit is the only thing that matters. Hopefully, seeing these labor practices compared like this has made it clear that not only is the US not living up to its claim to being the greatest nation on earth, but also that it consistently ranks poorly and often dead last in terms of labor metrics. Why is it that the wealthiest, most powerful nation on earth can't pay their workers a fair wage, or provide healthcare, vacation time, or paid parental leave? You should realize by now that it's not that they can't, it's that they won't. Everything in America is beholden to the almighty dollar. Profit is the only motivator. If an action does not produce a greater profit, it will not be considered.
That's right.
Over the last few decades, Americans have watched as our livelihoods, our quality of life, and our dignity have all been stripped away by those who already make obscene amounts of money. Those in power say we're all in this together, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The ultra-wealthy and the world's largest corporations rely on Americans remaining ignorant. They rely on us accepting the lie that America is the greatest nation on earth, that it couldn't possibly get any better. All you have to do to shatter that lie is to take a look around the world. Other nations take care of their citizens. Even impoverished nations, or nations that we've bombed into oblivion, take better care of their people than the US does. American workers need to relearn the language of class struggle and work together to break the wheel of the capitalist machine. If we want to claim that the United States is the greatest place on earth, we need to make it that way.
Yeah. A lot of good points in that video. And really, at the end of the day, the American worker can band together and make a lot of that fight for themselves. Because, like he said, I mean, the only reason they put up with it is because they are ignorant. If everybody demanded better conditions, better pay, better benefits, then that's what you would have to get. But it's easier said than done to band 300 million people together. Anyway, that's crazy stuff. Thank you for watching all the way through. Wow. And I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you come back. I hope you subscribe. I hope you do a lot of things, but hey, it's up to you. Do whatever you like. But have a good day. Goodbye.